So what is the tuning of that?
It's tuned to D. To D for the violin.
Okay. So it doesn't change, the note doesn't change?
No,
Yeah.
it's always, even the melody is changing, it's always D.
Okay. It's the same in Finnish folk music, actually. For me, the really interesting question is what really happens if, is it so that every week hundreds of new tunes have been born and then they just disappear, and then only the very best ones live forever? Do you think that these tunes have reached their final form a long time ago and they're just kept alive in this sort of identical way?
Yes, the scientists, musicologists say that there are some nations, some tribes with whom Hungarians lived together and they had the same melodies and the same almost identical melodies, and we separated more than 2,000 years ago. And there are, of course, many melodies which just filtering into the folklore, like suddenly, it was very ridiculous when you can realize that soap opera signal is appearing in the traditions. Like.
In Bartók, you know, I'm always fascinated by the fact that he establishes a chord. Maybe it's related somehow to the D, let's say, but he has a chord, and then when he creates a melody in that chord, you know, it's very often the case. For instance, in the first piano concerto, he establishes this, and then the melody is almost imprisoned in that chord for a long time. And then there's a variation. And of course the melody develops and then it modulates to another key, but it's always inside that chord. And I wonder if it's related to what you were saying about this.
I think that Bartók never used the same chords which used in that folk traditions, only similar, or the mentality is similar. By my opinion, he used the folk impressions to fertilize his own creativity to compose a modern music. Till today, among the classical musicians, there are a wrong point of view. They think that Béla Bartók has found a jewelry in the mud, a beautiful melody. But if you read the writings of Béla Bartók, it's just the opposite. He said that the way how a traditional singer or a traditional musician played in that style, that was for him the biggest enjoyment. He used this kind of melodies, for example, in the 44 violin duos, the 44th duo, that used the same melody.
Beautiful. Forgive my ignorance, but you know the beginning of the third piano concerto by Bartók, that melody, does it come from a melody that you're familiar with?
No.
You know. It's, for me, it's so
Sounds
Hungarian.
like, yes. Sometimes Béla Bartók himself said that it sounds like folkish.
But he invented it.
Sounds, yes, yes. But it's very interesting when we combine the string quartets with traditional music that the spirit is the same. The spirit is the most important.
Yeah. Well, Bartók for me is always the combination of this primitiveness and, you know, and incredible sophistication. That he took that primitive to such high levels and he developed it into an art form that is what makes Bartók a real genius, I think. You know, for instance, the first piano concerto, the way he begins, you know, those single notes, it's so pa 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 pa, you know. It's acceptance. And then he takes the same notes in the second movement and he creates an atmosphere that has never been heard before in music. You know, the beginning. For me, this is incredibly sophisticated, you know, that kind of, you know, art.
And there's such freshness also to this material, because it, you know, the other European composers at the time, many of them, especially in this town and around, they were kind of battling with the, you know, legacy leftovers from the high German Romanticism. And Bartók, you know, the big breakthrough for him was, of course, that he found this material which is so fresh, whether it's actually real folk music or whether it's something that sounds like folk music, that is not really the point, but he found this source of life. And for me, that's what makes it so effective, because it's so simple and yet very sophisticated at the same time. What I'm really interested in is this, you know, there's this kind of dance like energy in Bartók's music, and that very clearly comes from folk music. But then there's this sort of the moments of deep sorrow and sadness, and this kind of darkness that always comes to his music, and even the sort of most energetic pieces have these moments of real darkness. And I wonder whether there's a folk music.
Yes, there is.
Pattern for that.
That's okay. We went to villages to understand the meaning of the music. What was the meaning of the society? And I thought that they use it for curing, for healing for themselves. And that's the way why they play this kind of music in funeral. So this type of, there's a huch traditional.
But they also played it at weddings, no?
It's weddings also, but the wedding, there was some sad moments in weddings. There is one part of the wedding where everybody is crying. Why? Because that is the farewell of the bride. That's the moment when everybody should understand that, no, it's a big change is going to happen in this people's life. They are not child anymore. And then in that time, the musicians played almost the same melodies as they play in a funeral. And it was very normal then in a funeral or even a wedding party. Even the most strongest men were crying like children.
I cry when I cannot play the passage from the Bartók piano concerto. I start crying, you know.
You will live a long time.
So maybe I'll live a long life. I don't know.
A long life, yes. You're among the luckiest men.
Bartók as therapist. That's a new one.
Therapist, yeah.